Ambulance chasing her dreams, she ran herself right into the pavement. Ground her knees into concrete, held a death grip on the corner, lifted her eyes toward heaven and prayed like her life depended on it. Her soul was lifted as easily from her body as the newspaper clipping I picked up off the sidewalk. The print, faded by moisture, washed away her name like the chalk that once outlined the memory of her existence. The paper said it was a lover's quarrel. She was a cadaver of a violin held between his collarbone and chin, pinning the strings of her vocal cords between his thumb and his fingers because she didn't sing the way he thought she should, but then he never took the time to learn how to play. See, his hands were too flat. Played notes that were too sharp, would roll between her tongue and cheek. He would slur his insults into backhanded compliments. She would accent whole notes and jump octaves like conclusions. They placed their breaks between love notes that were sprinkled on folded paper instead of between arguments. The only rest in the entire symphony of their song was played as a prelude to the first responders on the scene. This composition was full of repeat signs, talking the same line of the same fight, crescendoing out of control. The paper said this wasn't the first time. The time before, police had caught him throwing his fiddles on the roof. In her final moments, she swallowed whole prayers. She sped up a song that never reached the last bar, but bystanders say if they had just practiced a little bit harder, it could have been beautiful. Instead, he smashed his bow against her brow and broke her notes in a vowel sound that resembled nothing of the song that they had envisioned. The paper said, he said it was an accident. He said he was sorry. He said he loved her. The quarter notes they left behind was the only proof he had, because the final notes of their song were the silence. Only sirens can play. In the aftertone of her broken Stradivarius that's been smashed against the pavement. I wonder sometimes what she could have become if she had only given herself to someone who actually knew how to play. Instead of the staccato flashing on the top of an ambulance that was singing before she ever left the pavement, she could have been a legato that would make hearts dance. She could have sung her own story with a vibrato only seen by maestros who could turn a composure into poetry. She could have been a pizzicato, strung on the fingertips of lovers' lips that both said I love you 70 years after her song began. She could have been a sonata. She could have been, she could have been a symphony. Instead, her elegy was written on a newspaper clipping with no clef or key. She used to be a violin. He played her like a tambourine, and he was no musician.
Wow.